Welcome back, friends. We're going to be continuing to look in the book of Matthew, so let's go ahead and look at our scripture for the day. Today's scripture is Matthew 24, verses 1 through 5, the destruction of the temple and signs of the end times. Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him and to call his attention to its buildings. "Do you see all these things?" he said. "Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down." As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. "Tell us," they said, "when will this happen, and what will the sign be of your coming and of the end of age?" Jesus answered, "Watch out, no one deceives you. For many will come in my name claiming I am the Messiah and will deceive many." Wow, what does all of that mean? Let's go ahead and look at the first verse where Jesus is leaving the temple and is walking away when the disciples come up to him and call his attention to the buildings. I want you to go ahead and look around the room in which you are in right now, and I want you to pick out one item to show for me. Pretend that I'm actually there with you and pretend that you're gonna be like, "Hey, Miss Mia, I wanna show you this," okay? Pick one item in the room and pretend that you're gonna show me. Go ahead and go for it. What did you do when you were trying to show me this item? Did you point to it? Did you kind of just say, "Oh, it's over that way," maybe do a head nod? I bet some of you pointed, right? I know when I try to show somebody something and I want them to look at something, I will physically point and say, "Look over there," right? That's kind of what the disciples were doing. This building, the temple that they were trying to get Jesus to look at, was this grand, magnificent building. You know, all people from all over came over to worship here. It is said that it was just this beautiful, magnificent, huge building. Jesus was very much unimpressed, as we see later in the verses. He says, "Do you see all these things?" He doesn't even refer to it as a building. He just says things. "Truly, I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down," right? So Jesus' disciples are going, "Wow, look at all this stuff. Look at all this cool architecture and the colors." And he's just like, meh, right? Why did Jesus say that? So in Matthew 6, 19 through 21, Jesus kind of talks about this, right? Treasures in heaven. "Do not store it for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store it for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So the disciples are really impressed by this building, right? Jesus doesn't care about the earthly things, you know? He does care about the people and the living things, but buildings, everything like that, that's not a permanent structure, you know? It might be built very, very well and might last so many years, but it's not permanent, right? And so we have a lot of earthly things here that we really enjoy. Books, stuffed animals, bunch of toys, right? But the thing is, we're not always going to have those things. Another thing we could also talk about is this can also be kind of thinking of like looking back, right? So Jesus is walking away from the temple. The disciples turn around. They look back on this building. Jesus doesn't want us to look back, right? When our life here on earth is done, we are going to be looking upward toward heaven. That's where we're going to be headed. Jesus doesn't want us to think about our time here on earth, right? Great time, but we shouldn't be looking back on it. We should be looking forward. That can be really hard though, right? I want you to go ahead and turn your back to me, okay? Turn all the way around so that you cannot see me. You can hear my voice, but you can't see me. Okay. Guys, I have this most amazing picture up on the screen behind me. Do you guys see it? Did you guys turn around? That was really hard, right? I told you that I had a grand picture on this wall, but what was on the screen? Nothing. It was just black. right? Maybe I should have given you guys some warning. I should say, no matter what I say, don't look back. Let's try this again. Go ahead and turn around. And I don't want you to look back, okay? Did you guys look? I just made a bunch of funny faces and I wasn't saying anything, right? How tempting was it to look back, to try to look back to see what I was doing? Some of you may have looked back, right? So Jesus is encouraging us to keep looking forward and not to focus on the things here on earth, because eventually all these earthly things that we have and that we collect, it's not going to be important anymore. Let's go back to our scripture. Let's look at the last verse. Last two verses. Jesus answered, "Watch out, no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many." So now Jesus is also warning us, saying, hey, there's going to be a lot of people out that you're going to encounter. When I'm gone, they're going to say, hey, I'm the Messiah. I know when Jesus is coming back. I know, when this world that we live on, will be done. And in the Bible, it clearly says that we do not know that time. Only God knows when that's going to happen. But there are so many people who have come in the past, and I'm sure there's going to be more people in the future that will come say, hey, follow me. I can tell you exactly when the end of the world is. Or, hey, I know what God's going to do next. Anything like that, to try to get people to pay attention to them, kind of to leave them astray, right? They're being deceived. Let's take a look at this picture. What do you see? Well, we have what looks like a very short man and a very tall woman. Is the man actually short, or is the woman actually very tall? What's going on in this picture, right? This is kind of what we call an optical illusion. It can be very deceiving, right? We don't actually, from just looking at it, you can't tell if that person's really short or that person's really tall. Maybe this person is a normal size and that person's really tall. It could just be a whole bunch of things, right? This is what actually is happening. So this is kind of like an experiment that many people have done. I think they can have them in museums and stuff. It's just supposed to be kind of fun. So one person would look through a peephole into this room where two people would be standing. That really short person that we saw that looked really short, they were standing in this left corner. And this other person was standing in the right corner, the person that looked very, very tall. Now, if you can see, the floor right here, this space right here, is slanted, right? It's not a flat surface. So these two people are actually the same size. But because the way that the floor is slanted and the room is angled, to that person who's just looking through this tiny little hole, it makes it look like these people are very tall and very short. The person's being deceived by the image in which they're seeing, right? So God is telling us, don't be deceived, because it can be very hard to tell. We're not really sure what we're seeing. It can be hard to tell until we do some digging. We can actually see what is going on. So I'm going to encourage you this week to, ask some questions this week. If you're not sure about something, if you come across something in the Bible and you want to know more about it, the best way to do that is to ask questions to parents. Maybe you can talk with your siblings and you can go talk to your parents together. Our whole relationship with God, a lot of it is based on question and finding out answers and learning more about the Bible. Right? And that is so we can make sure that our path is as straight as possible and that we're listening to God and what He says, and we're not getting all distracted with our earthly things. We're not looking back, right? And also, we want to be careful that we're not being deceived. I'll see you next time, friends.